technology today. Can everyone see that okay? So what you're going to do is take out your cell phones. Yes, the professor said take out your cell phones. And you want to be able to respond in one of two ways. The easiest way is to simply send a text message to 37607. That'll be who you're sending the text message to. That's 37607. And you're going to text my name, Jared Calique, 99. Sorry, that's my default login name for this. And then once you do that, you're going to answer which of these, of the following, does your company currently utilize in your recruiting? So which do you share with your potential candidates, and what do you share in your recruitment process? Out of these. And each one, you just have to, once you text the 37607, the Jared Calique 99, you'll enter into the system, and then you can just simply type A, B, C, etc., etc.
37607.
Go ahead and answer as many as that are applicable to your recruiting and your company.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So under messages,
Yep.
I'm just going to say 2.
Yeah, 2-37607. And then your very first text message will be my name, Jared Calique, 99.
Oh, that's it.
So now you remember my name.
I joined it.
And then you'll be in the system, and then you just type in whatever number. And we're doing this so it'll help the panel discussion, it'll help guide the conversation that the panel has.
Those percentages don't really apply because there people can pick multiple.
Yeah, it's all that apply. Yeah, they're all that apply. So the percentages are just how many people, out of the people that are responding, use that.
So I'm doing A, comma, D, comma.
Or you could do a space, or you could do separate text messages, either way. The only thing it will not recognize is if you type without any spaces between the letters. So if you just do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc., without any spaces, it will recognize your answer.
So we click on the link to polleverywhere.com, or?
Yeah, you could do that as well.
Oh, okay.
Either that or the text message, either one.
Okay.
Did we just put the letter?
Oh yeah, no, you know you're in. Now all you do is type in whatever number your answer is.
A. And
Yep. A enter.
It says the poll is full now. Is that a thing?
It was locked at 50 responses. So I think everyone in the room pretty much has it.
Per response. So someone submitted 4 different things that counts as.
It's not perfect. It's not.
I was locked out.
So, any of these.
All right. Well, hopefully we've captured enough for the panel's
Oh, yeah.
guidance.
Receiving, right, so. It's 'cause I submitted.
The default is 50. So I'm sorry if we could up the limit next time.
All right. Jonathan.
Okay.
So share just a little bit about yourself and then a few of the folks who are here today.
All right. My name is Jon Molayem. I run a company called Acquivest Financial Group. For the last 15 years, we do mergers and acquisitions advisory. And why don't we go down the list of our panel? So Doug just spoke. We all know Doug. Agnes.
Agnes Gregory with Grennan Fender CPAs. I am the tax director there. I'm in charge of the tax department and actually am facing all these challenges at the moment because we are looking to hire.
Gary.
Gary Cohen with Nperspective CFO and Strategic Services, and so we're doing part-time and interim and project CFO work and touching pretty much all aspects of the management and leadership team at most companies we work with.
Paul.
I'm Paul Dietrich. I'm a real estate and corporate lawyer at Swan, Hadley, Stone, Dietrich and Spears, a full-service business law firm in Winter Park, Florida.
And Daryl.
Daryl Dixon with Valintry Services. Talked to you earlier.
All right, and this is an area that I've experienced a lot of heartburn in, so I have a lot of questions assembled on this. We're not going to be able to get to anywhere near close to even half of them, but in regards to this, the results here, I mean, I don't know if it's totally indicative of our group, but it looks like accurate, detailed job descriptions came in pretty high, as well as culture. Does anyone in the panel have any specific thoughts in regards to what they would emphasize from their own experiences? Anyone who wants
The one thing I would just say is, if you don't know your Glassdoor company rating, certainly look it up, because you don't know what your ex-employees have maybe posted on there, and guaranteed a lot of new hires are going to go to there first to see whether or not they think that you're an appropriate employer for them to join. So it's easy to understand, and then the more familiar you get with it, you can start to manage any bad reviews you get and what happens.
In my experience, Glassdoor is a little bit like Yelp. People tend to experience the negativity if they have something versus sing the praises of a company. So does anyone have a good way to counteract that negativity circulating in Glassdoor from their own experience? Anyone that wants to?
Just one note on that, you can actually have things removed from Glassdoor. It's, just because it's on there doesn't mean it has to stay on there. If it's anything that specifically identifies a particular person in your organization that it's kind of offensive to, you can actually have that be removed. So just because it's on there, don't think you're stuck with it.
Okay.
How do you get it removed?
You have to contact Glassdoor directly and to make your case for it. It takes a little while, but it can be done.
Okay, well, culture came in pretty high right here. Obviously, the culture is quite different based on industry, geography, all the way down to whether you're a millennial or Gen Z to a baby boomer. Paul, do you have any thoughts on the differentiation here?
Yeah, you know, it's we're a law firm that's got some people who kind of fit into all of the various generations, right? And so it's and I think there's an impression in the workplace that because we've been around for a long time, like 95 years, and our most prominent attorneys are kind of the elder statesmen of the community, there's an impression that our culture is kind of an older culture, right? And so what we often have to wrangle with when we're hiring is to educate our prospective candidates that there's actually a transition in place, right, from the people that you may have heard about from Swan and Hadley to the next generation of ownership and management. And that's important to people, because the concern in any business, but as well as in, I guess, in a law firm is, well, if I join your practice, what's going to happen when the older attorneys retire or pass away, which unfortunately happened to us recently. Richard Swan passed away in August. And there was a big concern among not only current employees, but we discovered among prospective employees that there was a concern that, well, if he's not there, what's the firm look like? Because if he was the first name of the door, or he was the CEO, then he must have been responsible for the lion's share of the revenue and client relationships and all that. So from a culture standpoint, you know, even though we're heavily diversified in terms of our individual attorney relationships, we've been kind of shoving against a tide of kind of false impressions about how the firm was structured and who controls the revenue and what happens if a transition plan hasn't been put into place. So, and we've been doing that prospectively in our hiring practice. We've been kind of, instead of waiting for people to kind of ask the question they might be uncomfortable to ask, we've been leading with it, talking about our transition plan and talking about our prospects for the future, and making the case to sell like you said, to sell to the community as opposed to letting them determine the narrative.
I think there's some overlap too with the culture in our company's story, and you know, whatever you're hiring, you know, Bob, you might face this. Somebody who's going to be a termite and pest control technician could go to work for Massey, they could go to work for Orkin. What is the story that your company has that's different when you're recruiting someone who just thinks, well, I'm a technician in this field and I can go to work anywhere? What are is there a I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. Is there a what are the differentiators that you tell people when they're coming in that maybe puts them into your door rather than someone else's door?
Well, we're a smaller company. We operate about 35 trucks from 3 locations, but we do offer a very personalized type service, not only for our external customers, but our internal customers. The opportunity for upward mobility with us probably exceeds Massey and some of the larger companies. So it's a more personal-based kind of an approach towards dealing with our employees. We cater to them, we babysit them, we get them what they need, and as a result, they stick around with us. And it's just a different culture than you're going to get with those monstrous companies.
And that's where the importance, I think, for everyone is what is your company's story and how does it integrate with your culture when we're fighting in an economy where there's, you know, especially in Central Florida, where there's an opportunity for employees to look at jobs rather than us to, you know, see which employee we want.
Well, this kind of relates to the idea of retaining good employees long-term, which is also very difficult in this environment. In the world of Agnes and Paul, you just make them partner, right? But you can't do that in all industries. Doug, in your business, you know, obviously you have to, it's a long-term play, you know, in your business. When you get someone good, sometimes it takes a while for them to pick up steam, and finally when they're all caught up in where you want them, maybe they're moving. What are some ideas on how to retain people without making them, you know, for example, a partner or, you know, phantom stock, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to being very intentional. As Daryl was talking about earlier, intentional in your hiring process, intentional also, I wanted to comment on you're talking about the Glassdoor and how do you improve your ratings in Glassdoor. You have to be intentional in that as well regarding that exit interview. Somebody was talking about the exit interview. During that exit interview, do you say, hey, Daryl, would you please go on Glassdoor and give us a good review? Do you feel comfortable doing that, or you might do that and get a bad review? So you have to weigh that, but be again intentional in regards to helping to boost that Glassdoor rating. One of the trends, and I was talking with Robert earlier about business structure. And as the economy is growing, it's great, but your company grows and then it becomes unwieldy. Sometimes you lose control. In the book that you mentioned that you've read is that book called Traction by Gina Wickman, and that EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. Mm-hmm. I'm hearing a lot more companies are doing that type of a program. That's just one example. There are others. But again, being intentional about how you're structuring your company, that type of program, I'm doing it with my company as well, is very good about building the why story and the speech that you give and your values that you're again, I keep using the word intentional because that's really what it is. So sometimes we just fly by the seat of our pants, but being conscious, working on your business, not just in the business to set up that structure. That takes time, it takes energy, and sometimes it takes money. But yeah, and it's a big commitment. But to do it right, you have to spend all three, I think: time, energy, and money sometimes to set it up properly.
If I can just add to the Traction book, we implemented it, and specifically what we found in Traction makes a difference is maintaining that scheduled issues meeting and having an open door for people to put issues on that list. So we encourage anybody and everybody to put their issues on that list, and it's just kind of like a pressure relief valve. People know that there's a vehicle to get it there. It's our responsibility as management to make sure we respond to it, but just that one tool is very powerful in making sure that you don't have frustration building up and people aren't addressing it.
I was going to add, I think a lot of times we talk about how do we retain employees, but we got to go back to day one and make sure we get the right people in the right places. And a tool like the predictive index is amazing. We did it with my firm, Nperspective, and we all were already on board as CFO consultants. And like 13 out of 15, we all had the same exact profile, so to speak. And the only two that didn't were the two people who were like the leaders in sales and getting more clients coming in. But the rest of us who did CFO and strategic consulting, we all came up looking pretty similar on that. So a lot of times if that tool is used before you make the hire, it'll help you put people in the right seats. And then also asking the right questions. If you tell somebody who's young and a millennial, hey, it's going to be exciting, we got all these different IT jobs you're going to work on, and they're thinking, geez, I just want to work on one big project. You may have big projects and a bunch of small ones. If you find out what they're looking for, you match them up with that instead of putting them in the wrong place, and then you don't retain them because they're not doing what they really want to do anyway. So I think the early stages sets the stage for a lot of retention in the long run.
That's a good point. I think that we've crafted job descriptions that, like we've always crafted, which are fairly detailed and describe a certain job, which typically right now isn't really working because the job market is so rough. And so what we've told our administrator who handles our recruiting and many other things, we've got to work with her. We said, you're not going to find the candidates that fit our job description anymore. So just hire smart. Just find smart people, and because we can work with smart, and you can't teach smart. And so and so she's kind of, so she'll bring people to us that don't fit, that they have no paralegal experience. They're not, but they have something about them. They have an ability to kind of work their way through problems. They've overcome things. They're smart. And then what we've tried to do is mentor them and into becoming paralegals. And if you can start with smart, then you can turn and they want a career in legal studies. Many of them want to go to law school. That's great. We have 2 employees right now that we sent to law school, who are now they started with as paralegals, and they expressed an interest in going to law school, and they went to Barry Law School at night, worked during the day, and they are now 2 of the finest. Karen Brown's one of them. These are 2 of the finest lawyers we have in our firm, and they didn't quite fit the bill early on, but they were brilliant, and we just kind of like supported them, and they've been with our firm for over 30 years, and that's the sort of employee you just can't replace.
Well, I've learned in Daryl's presentation that money is often not the main driver why employees leave. And then in Doug's presentation, you indicated that sort of was becoming more of a relevant decision-making item. So I wanted to put this out to you all. Do you have any specific experiences on employees leaving and what their drivers are? And maybe you can differentiate by industry or age, or how do we figure this out? Does anyone have any feedback or any thoughts? Want to share?
I just work as an employee, but working in banking, I've seen this shift from the typical 9 to 6, Monday through Friday in the office mentality to now a lot more flexible schedule, work from home capability, at least a few days a week. So we still have that. There's still a benefit, I think, to the team environment, office culture sometimes, but we have people that are able to balance that with their family life and things they have going on personally, and spend time at home, and still, I'd say in some cases, they're actually probably more productive and more effective because of that flexibility.
So Agnes, in your world, things get pretty hectic and crazy when deals are on. In terms of burnout, do you see that as often a reason why someone may leave the firm?
Luckily for us, not on our end, but what I am seeing is on the recruiting side, when we're speaking to prospective employees, is why are you leaving your firm? And a lot of times they are mentioning flexibility. A lot of times it's flexibility and the environment and the culture. They're looking for, yes, they want that fun atmosphere where they can come in and socialize, but at the same time they're saying, well, I literally had one person say, well, my firm is completely virtual. We log in, everything's SaaS, we can access it anywhere, but they don't let us work from anywhere but the office. We have to be there. And it's insane to me, but that happens. And these employees that are out there looking for jobs, just looking for really a better quality life, And in my industry, we do work quite a bit. So just to have that flexibility where on weekends they don't have to come in, or they can go home at night, have dinner with their kids and families, and then come back to work virtually is very important. It just keeps our sanity.
Yeah. How are you all addressing multi-generational candidates in terms of differing priorities? This is an interesting question. In terms of hiring, what do you know going in that folks may be interested in, and you might present up front? Does anyone have any things about that?
We tell our clients, because they're always asking about how to keep my healthcare cost. We say, well, you have to hire 30-year-olds and younger. That's simple as that. That's it, yeah, it's just that simple.
So if you're having an entry-level position, Daryl, what kind of things do they want to hear that you think in advance that you want to present and offer them?
I think the important thing to do is to listen, but they're looking for not just a place to work, they're looking for a place to have an experience and to be able to collaborate with peers. And I think they're also looking for an environment that's going to elevate them. Is it an educating, is it a growing environment? The one thing I learned also is that all the wild and crazy socks are very important in this day and age. So I realize that, but I keep listening and learning. And so it's interesting to find out what things they're interested in. But listening, I think, is a really important key.
I think if I have a lot of different clients, but one's a nonprofit, and they foster growing people professionally and personally. They encourage all members of the team to get involved with volunteer work or to serve on nonprofit boards in the community and become active. And I haven't seen this in too many places. So we're not just growing them professionally to maybe improve and advance in our nonprofit that I'm with, but to go elsewhere or to just become a community leader. And so they feel much more valued as a total human being than as just an employee.
I wanted to talk about the future of minimum wage. This isn't anything that was originally on the list, but as I've been here, I put a lot of thought into that because I have clients that operate in California, and that going up to $15 an hour really changes how you do things. But at the same time, I personally feel that gap of income is just, and wealth is just broadening. In the event that minimum wage sort of catches up, depending on who we have in office, what are your thoughts on that possibility or likelihood? And then what kind of things need to happen from a CEO's perspective to adjust, at least as far as doing business in Florida? Gary, if you have a thought on that.
Well, I think a tough part of it is, not just the minimum wage goes up, but then to avoid too much salary compression, everybody's, wages ends up going up. So, and the other area I think that starts mitigating this is, technology eliminating employees. We've been doing this for decades. I mean, you can see when you walk into Walmart, it used to be there was 15 cashiers, now there's 3 cashiers, and there's a whole bunch of scan and goes, and we scan all of our own groceries. So instead of having 15 cashiers making $12 an hour, if they have 3 or 4 supervisors making $15 an hour, they've figured out a way to cut their cost, even though the wages of each individual employee are going up. In some labor-intensive fields, it's much harder in construction. If you're doing tilt concrete, or you're doing plumbing, or you're doing HVAC, or you're servicing homes for pest control. So it really is a challenge to try and figure out how to do that. I guess the one bright spot is all your competitors are going to have to do it too. So if you really sit around the table and you brainstorm as a group and try to encourage everybody to have ideas. If somebody comes up with 5 ideas and only one's a great idea, man, you've made some progress. So encourage ideas from your employees. They're usually your best source of figuring out how to do things more efficiently at a lower cost and bring in additional revenue.
I don't know if we're ready for the last question.
Go ahead and do it. Great question.
This is, according to our friend Nasser, 85% of the jobs by 2030 have yet to be invented. So, when you think about this, most of the jobs that exist now may not be in existence in 2030. So, what are some ideas of jobs that may be phased out? And I wanted to make this, anyone that has an opinion on where things are headed, please feel free to interact. But out of our dais here, does anyone have any ideas on some areas that we need to look out for?
On the technology front, have you heard much about the robo employee, where it's actually a program that's written on a computer to handle kind of jobs that might be in a call center? It might be, we've all been on the computer searching something and something pops up and says, hey, how can I help you? Well, that's a program in the cloud somewhere. It's actually not a person. And someone was telling me about that, and it's really making traction, and it's obviously for certain positions. But are you guys familiar with any of that piece?
I'm not.
I just think wherever there can be more automation, there's going to be. I mean, when I have one lady who works for me at a client, and she's in her 70s, and she talked about when she was in New York in her 20s and having several floors of people inputting accounting data. Right now, I mean, it may be, there might have been 400 employees, and now there's 4 do the same thing because of computerization. So I think anywhere where there's going to be computerization, AI, and all these things, everybody's looking to reduce the number of employees, make them more efficient. So I think it's going to be happening everywhere except when you're really hands-on in construction and service and areas where you need somebody there to perform those tasks. Everywhere else, and even in those areas it is. I mean, I mentioned tilt concrete. You can put blocks together, or you can pour it into a form and tilt the concrete up, and it's cheaper. So a lot of schools are being built that way. People are trying to figure out ways to do things faster, quicker, and efficiently and better, and it's going to keep happening.
Within 2-3 years, million Uber drivers will go. Uber. Self-driving cars are coming.
You can make the argument that more of the less fulfilling positions are going to be the ones that get phased out. So hopefully that leads to more satisfaction in the workplace.
Well, I look at, the Central Florida economy, of course, the whole Florida Peninsula is largely tourism, service-based. You've got a lot of that. I just look around the room. You've got food, you've got, pest control, landscaping, you've got technology, okay, services, okay, importing, all right, you've got staffing. I'm just looking at it. The personal touch is never going to go away. So when I look at it, the back office component may be in the blockchain someday, right? All right, but what drives a company is going to be the interpersonal relationships. How many people get handwritten cards these days from people? I get handwritten cards from various folks that I meet with, and I send handwritten cards and notes out to people and put a real stamp on it. They love it. It's all going back to that. It's that personal touch. So I would lobby. Yes, you're going to have technology and things that are going to be going on in the back office, but the point of difference going forward, I don't care if you're 2030 or 2050, it's going to be the flesh and blood that's interacting with the ultimate buyer of whatever you're selling.
Well, theoretically, you could outsource those handwritten cards, but did anyone else have?
Well, I was going to speak to the answers comment. So 10 years ago, there was no such thing as a digital ad campaign.
Yeah.
And now that's the bulk of what we do with the marketing communications. And so if you're not going to be phased out as an employee, you should still be fully prepared to constantly be relearning and re-educating, because it's changing.
Amen.
In my industry, man, it is on fire for change. If I don't learn something new, I'm going to be obsolete.
I think jobs that require empathy and understanding, communicating with customers, other people, I think it's going to be very difficult to replace that with an algorithm. So that's my thought.
But at the same time, I think we better take a very long look at how the 18-year-old goes to market.
Yes.
Because you know, at that age, I'd have said, I'd have never purchased a car offline. I need to go get in the car, test drive it, do this, do that, so on and so forth, so I can feel the car. I want to put on a shirt, I want to put on a pair of slacks, I want to feel it before I make the purchase. I can go right online right now and go to cars.com and buy a car, or it will be delivered, and I've never even seen the thing. 18-year-old and 19-year-old guys, they think different. I live in the tech world, just like Daryl does, and we're digital immigrants. Our kids are digital natives. They don't know life without this thing. They have no idea of life at all. My kid asked me, Dad, what kind of iPhone did you have growing up? They had a 4. They actually just performed a couple of tests, and they've asked the kid to pick up an old rotary phone and dial. And he stood there for like 5 minutes, and he just started hitting buttons without ever picking up the handle. They don't know. So whatever, how your kid purchases, think about what you used to do. That job's going away.
Yeah, yeah. I bought my last 2 cars online at like 11, 12 o'clock at night without driving it. So I mean, it's sort of different. That's for sure.
Such a millennial.
That's right. But yeah, I have a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and I'm constantly thinking, like, what kind of things do they need to have to be relevant when they're ready to look for a job? And the thing I always focus on personally is problem solving ability. Because if you know how to deal with adversity and figure your way through things, I think that can kind of relate to anything you're doing. So that's what I try to focus on. So anyway, thank you very much.